Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. This is Freshly Pressed. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines across the country. I am Zibby here, and as always, we have our analysts. Would love for you to be a part of the conversation. WhatsApp number is 0809 440 You can also tweet at Smooth981. We're streaming live on our YouTube channel is Smooth981 FM Lagos, and you can post a comment on there as well. Our analysts this morning, Amy Bozimo and Joseph Obari. Good morning and welcome.
Hello, good morning to all the wonderful listeners and to you guys in the studio.
Thank you.
Good morning, Zibby and Lagos. Everybody, good to see you.
Welcome.
All right, so we're starting off from a punch. Now, millions of electricity consumers maybe or have been plunged into darkness in the coming weeks as the federal government via the transmission company of Nigeria and the market operator have started a massive disconnection of debtor electricity distribution companies from the national grid.
Now, they wrote a list of the companies that have been disconnected and in alphabetical order. And honestly, I'm suspecting that the list of those that have not been disconnected will be much fewer. Fundamentally, something is broken because literally every major distribution company has been disconnected. So we go to the core issue of debt to the transmission company. I'm not an expert, and I do not liken electricity generation to the phone services. But how is it that these bills begin to pile up? They are not, paid. The amounts become absolutely a huge debt overhang. And then we now resort to this latter day disconnection. I think that one of the first ways to ensure your money is given to you before it becomes a debt is to engage in massive provision of meters. But there are still so many humps to go over when it comes to getting a meter. Because like the phones, if you don't have your credit in your phone, pretty much you cannot make a phone call. So how come this, what appears to me to be like a low-hanging fruit, is not one of the first things that the various discos do? And then they have epileptic services in the first place, and people are harder to convince to pay. Now, under no circumstance should you consume a product and not pay. That's all I'm saying. But I'm saying if the discos simply made sure that you must be metered before you consume, and you must have power or credit on your meter, then the whole idea of indebtedness would gradually at least disappear. So it seems backward that you would have people consuming power, running up your debts, now come and threaten them. Now they're disconnecting the companies, and of course the companies will come and disconnect the end users. It's a bad cycle all around, and it seems to me that the mentality has to change so that people can get the power that we also desperately need, and the companies providing the power can get the money that they fundamentally need in order to function as good business entities. Something is not making sense here. There's so much demand and so much indebtedness. How about you put them together and have a beautiful situation? Something doesn't have no light across Nigeria right quick.
Let me just chip in there, and I say that the confusion in the entire electricity sector is very, very, very deep, much deeper than just this issue of discos not paying. In fact, as the last time I know, the company I worked for was transmitting power to the TCN, and TCN was owing over $200 million. It hadn't paid the company, and they are not even paying generators. Power generators were not even paying for gas. I mean, it's all, the whole system is debt ridden. So I don't even know where to start. If I just, like AP say, it's crazy. The simple fact that is coming out through all of this is that the handling, the unbundling of the power sector and all that, what is it called? The regulation wasn't properly thought through, and so many things are falling through the cracks, and the result is what we are seeing. And it's deeper than what we think. It's deeper than all that we are seeing, and we don't know where it will end. If the transmission companies, okay, those who are even selling power from TCN were to do what they are doing now, then it will be worse than what we're saying, because they won't even have power in the grid at all. And that was only one organization that is selling power to TCN, and they were not paid. As of 2018, they were still owing over $200 million to one organization. So, but they can always say, okay, the Gencos are not paying us, all these people are not paying us, the Discos are not paying us, and then Disco says the consumers are not paying us. But there is no excuse for this at all. And it's an embarrassment. It should be a national embarrassment. In Abuja, where we are now, where everybody's running generators, it's noisy, pollution everywhere. It's been epileptic, and then this has happened, and it's worse.
All right, Joseph, let's move on to our next story here from the Vanguard.
This just reeks of...
Nigeria police retirees have cried out to the National Assembly to quickly pass the bill before it to enable them to exit from the contributory pension scheme, which they said has impoverished them and subjected them to serious hardship.
I don't know what to say here, because the contributory pension scheme is supposed to be something very positive. In fact, at the time it was introduced, it looked like something that could work. But if it is working for some people and not working for others, then there's a whole lot of questions we need to ask. In the security sector, almost every agency in the security sector has been pulled out of the contributory pension scheme. And I think it's only fair, if for anything else, it's only fair that the police retirees have the same benefits or enjoy the same privileges as their other colleagues in the security sector. And to isolate them and make them go through this kind of experience, even when they are in service, they don't get the best. When they retire, when after serving the nation, they still don't have the best. It's not good enough. And these are things the National Assembly, you expect the National Assembly will prioritize, and they will push and use every kind of urgency to make sure they deal with. But then, unfortunately, you find matters that should be of critical concern to our lawmakers do not attract them if their interest is not there. So we pray that they listen to this appeal and ensure that the bill can get passed. I don't know how quickly they can do so for assent before the president leaves office or this government winds up. Otherwise, the pensioners' agony will just be extended beyond this period. And it is sad. It's very, very sad.
May I just chip in?
Yes,
may I just chip in on that very briefly? You see, they're talking about the sums that they get per month being meager. And in the context of Nigerian expenses, it is indeed meager, 46,000 and even less per month, but income during your service. So it has to go back to us, first of all, esteeming the profession of policing and paying them sufficiently so that their contributions are correspondingly higher. And we must never forget that the Nigerian police are people who are trained to do the things that the rest of us neither have the talent, the inclination, or the ability to do, so that we can go about doing our other businesses. They are there in the breach for us, maintaining the peace. And if they didn't exist, it would be utter chaos. I speak about this from close contact with the police in recent days. I'll say this, just like Joseph said, when there does not seem to be a direct benefit to our lawmakers, they may not pay enough attention, but they create a circumstance where certain select police are attached to them. And then those people seem to enjoy, let's call it, a better standard of living. That has to change. Every person who dedicates themselves to serving the nation in each and every one of the security forces must know that in their lifetime, they live a decent life. And in the unfortunate event of their death, their descendants will be properly supported. The US has a system that they call the veteran system. So most people who are soldiers or, army and police officers have special services given to them for the fact that they once served the nation. That is the mentality. It was laws passed that made those preeminent, decisions benefit people who serve. We must look into that kind of thing over here.
All right, let's go on to WhatsApp. We have some messages coming through.
Yes, this one is from Wale. Wale says, metering is not a complete solution. Now, like the previous speaker said, it's much deeper than people understand. Electricity customers and the general attitude is that people do not like to pay for service. Now, imagine that even digital lending companies have had to resort to extreme measures to recover their loans. Distribution companies have recorded energy theft against companies as well as celebrities. He also adds that meters are usually bypassed within 48 hours of incident. More resources to monitor the meters installed, that's losing more revenue.
Sekwemeka says, okay, let's go on to Ajayi's message. The disconnection of the discos from the national grid is proof of the failure of the arrangements where all you have is Gencos, Transcos, and discos. It's been said over and over again, perhaps the way it's done in developed countries where the company that generates electricity also distributes it in a given area. Dami from Ikeja says there are 11 discos in Nigeria. 9 of them are listed as defaulters. The failure of governors or of government to create proper structures for the power sector is emblematic of our failures as a nation. A few weeks ago, it was banks and then telcos. Tomorrow, who knows? You're listening to Smooth 98.1. This is Freshly Pressed. Please stay with us. It continues shortly. Okay. We'll be back on in a minute, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
When you were reading your piece, it wasn't.
Your voice wasn't loud.
Yeah, I think you were missing the mic.
Come closer. Okay, we're trying to sort out. I think, is it better now? Can you hear him better? Is
it better now?
Yeah, that's.
I think yes, so yes, it is.
All right.
We'll just sit closer to each other.
Zibby, there you go.
Okay. Excuse me.
Glad to be of service, Zibby.
Oh, thank you so much, baby. We appreciate it.
That was quick.
You have 30 seconds. You're very fast. Okay, we're coming back on.
Okay.
Ayo, bring us in.
All right, welcome back. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth with Zibby and Ayo. You can be a part of Freshly Pressed this morning by sending your messages to us via WhatsApp on 0809 444 981. Analyst this morning still with us, Abby, and
All right, let's move on to Punch. Now, governors from the 6 states in the North Central region commenced a conference on human capital development, prefer a lasting solution to poverty and other socioeconomic challenges that have affected the residents of the region.
Okay. It's about time, 63 years after independence. It's not, maybe they weren't really wasting any time to have this kind of conference and thinking about it. Setting that aside, it's a very important thing. It's not really sustainable for any portions of the nation to have such a wide gap in the Human Capital Development Index, considering that there is nothing fundamentally missing or wrong or missing from that segment of the nation. So if the leaders have, as they say, finally woken up to understand that their primary responsibility is to create the context and conditions where the people in their states can thrive, survive, contribute, and have the pride of place among people across the world, then it can only be seen to be a good thing. There have been certain cultural, perhaps mentalities, certain worldviews that must be overcome. All sorts of stakeholders, I'm happy to see, are involved. You talk about traditional rulers, federal and state officials and everything, and they're trying to meet and come up with a strategy. That is the first and most important step. What will emerge from it could transform that portion of the country. These are portions of the world that are akin to, if you will, the very famous and famed UAE. Largely sunny sorts of things that include agriculture and lots of educational opportunities, because the whole notion of sitting down waiting each month for a certain thing called an allocation from a center is a failed, not failing, but a failed strategy that has not served any part of the nation or indeed that segment for the past 63 odd years. I'm happy to hear this. I actually look forward to hearing what some of the results might eventually be. But it's about time, is what I'd say.
All right.
All right, let's move on to our next story here. Now, this is from the Punch newspaper. The Lagos State House of Assembly has urged Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu to improve infrastructural facilities in all the primary healthcare centers across the state.
As far as I'm concerned, that's a no-brainer. I don't think any governor needs to be told what needs to be done in the health sector in Nigeria. It is simply very appalling. Most of the health centers lack what they should do to function as proper health centers. And you're talking about primary health centers. That's the closest to the people. Primary health care in any part of the world is given so much attention because that's where you arrest illnesses before they progress to something more serious, which will require you taking it to the tertiary health institutions, the teaching hospitals, and so on. Now, the result of neglecting the primary health centers in Nigeria has been that the tertiary hospitals have been burdened by too many cases of primary health needs. So you go, if you have malaria illness, you're going to the teaching hospital, you have what can be managed at a lower level, everything is concentrated because there is no attraction for primary health care. And we can't continue. Ever since Ransom Kuti left Nigeria's health system, he was the one who shot primary health care to the highest point where it was. And at that peak, we would have built on it as a foundation and keep building until today. We would have had primary health care where doctors will even be hungry to want to work in. But it's the reverse. We concentrate everything in the tertiary ones, and then we neglect the primary health care. And then it gets to a point where the House of Assembly has to beg the governor that he should fix primary health care. I don't, it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. And we don't need to tell any governor that that's what he needs to do. But it's not just Lagos, it's all over the country. Most of them, most of these primary health centers are simply abandoned. Most of them don't have doctors. Even when doctors are posted there, the environment is not attractive for the doctors don't stay. They just appear whenever they can, they go away when they want, when they to go and look for other ways they can survive. So we can't continue like this. Primary healthcare is very, very important. And that's why it's primary. It's the first one, is the one that reaches most.
I think,
Joseph,
if I might, if I might.
All right.
Yeah, go on.
We have to understand that the primary health care is just part, should just be part of an overall health strategy. Like Joseph has so correctly said, something as simple as a bone stuck in your throat should not make you have to go to the tertiary institution. A hanging nail, for goodness sake, you should be able to go to the primary healthcare with your weak low finger and get it treated there and go home. But because we've not put enough emphasis, not just on the centers and the equipment, but on equipping the staff themselves. Let's never forget that the medical professions are literally a service industry. It cannot be pleasant to see the kind of situation that walk in the door every day as a medical professional, whether the doctors, the nurses, the lab techs. You have to create the conditions that make that work tolerable, efficient, and rewarding. Then, without being said, get the facilities themselves to have proper electricity, make sure pipettes, burettes, all those things are part of what would make it reasonable for a person who just has a little, knock on the knee or something to walk in there and go out satisfied. Both the patient and the professionals would have got to the right solution. But right now, many of them are actually cockroach and rat, hotels. They may have a signboard, but that's about it. And so, yes, for the assembly to need to tell a sitting governor that should be done, it almost doesn't merit attention. It's just the human cost and the toll of not having it that makes it very important for us to discuss.
All right, on WhatsApp, Abbas says, we need to keep calling out our state governors whose responsibilities are primary healthcare and education. We focus so much on federal government for things that are not even their responsibilities. Cisco Delgado says, it's a very sad situation with regards to the pass system in Nigeria. It's become a gold mine where successive governments amass wealth without any real change. Idima Puza says, the government has not done well in the area of electricity, and yet we are forced to pay high tariff for darkness.
All right, let's move on to our next story here. Now, the federal government has said it will enroll 4,000 internally displaced persons as IDPs into transitional learning centers. The Federal Commissioner of National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, spoke while launching the center at Kuchingoro IDP camp in Abuja yesterday.
If I may take that, I am so troubled that we are almost normalizing the notion of an internally displaced person. First of all, it's imperative that people who are displaced don't lose their place in the educational flow. So that is the big kudos for that policy. But I would hope, expect, and indeed demand that people who have been, that it is facilitated that they get back to their roots. So the roots of a person becoming internally displaced must be looked into so that you don't now create new facilities, infrastructure, and thereby think you deserve a pat on the back. I do not want to feel that people who have been driven from their ancestral places for weeks, months, and maybe even years at this point, now have to create brand new routes inside a country where we are supposedly not formally at war. So again, kudos to the notion of making sure that you do everything possible to make sure that the children from ages 5 to 18 continue to learn, to the extent that they can, alongside their peers in various other non-conflict theaters. But I want that focus, that energy, side by side, because we must be able to demonstrate that we can walk and chew gum as a nation at the same time, while educating these people, create the conditions of safety and security in their ancestral lands and get them back. Anything short of that is actually embracing and normalizing plunder and terrorism and its side effect, which is internally displaced people. It's not acceptable. We must not normalize it.
On to Vanguard. The strike embarked upon by the Nigerian Labour Congress in Imo State left many passengers stranded at the Samu Mbakwe International Airport. Now, the strike, called by the National Working Committee of the union, was as a result of the face-off between the Imo State government and the NLC.
I don't think it is fair that the NLC should punish citizens who have no business with their quarrel with the government the way they are doing. I don't see how it solves the problem. If you are having an issue with government and they feel aggrieved, there are the courts for you to go to and lay your complaint, and the court should look into it. I mean, I was watching on national television when the Labor Day was going on, and the report came in that, oh, thugs have invaded the arena in Owerri, beating up workers and all that, and chase them, and they vandalize their property and whatever. Whatever it is, the issue between the Imo State government and workers, there are other legitimate ways they can handle them without inflicting pain on people who have no business with this, their ego tripping they are doing. I don't see how there's somebody who is traveling is now having to suffer for what he doesn't know anything about. So, and the problem, I'm some critical of NLC and labor leaders, but their belligerence and their approach to issues have not really, I don't see how very refined they are. Because the point is that if they agree with what happened to them, they're just like any citizen. They can sue the state government, they can go to court, they can file actions, they can ask for injunction, they can do any other thing. First of all, before talking about strike, I mean, I don't know if the aviation workers are in any way working for the government, maybe because the airport is owned by was built by Imo State government. But I think when you build an airport, the fund takes it over and runs it and sends personnel there. So I don't actually understand the quarrel here, where there's so much of brinkmanship and all that is showing in Imo State and between NLC and the government. It is unfortunate, and I think the Imo State government has to sit up and look into these things. It doesn't bode well for the government at all. His name is being dragged to things that are so negative, violence and all that. You know.
All right, I'm going to read one more message. This is from Abbas. He says, we hope Joe Ajero would not continue to do the wrong things. A man who could switch off national grid and get away with it will do anything for unionism. Disrupting flights because of an issue with the state government is very inconsiderate by the union. It's very distasteful. That is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you for your messages. Thank you for listening. And of course, special thanks to you, our analysts, AB and Joseph, for joining us on the show this morning.
Great time, great team. Thanks
Have
so
a
much.
wonderful day. Have a great weekend ahead.
Thanks so much.
Happy weekend, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast. 8:15, step into the locker room.